next year, but we don't know. So I would say I would dig deep and figure out what are the things that I'm best at, whether that's being again analytical, or is it leading? What are those core soft skills that you can develop that don't cost money, right? Because one thing that you might not have is the capital or the finances to invest, but we all still have the same 24 hours. So I would hop on YouTube. I would meet people. I would maybe start a podcast where you can invite guests that have the skills that you want to gain and ask them questions. That's what I did when I wanted to learn more about business and entrepreneurship. I said, okay, I'll start a podcast. I'll invite people on. I'll ask a couple of decent questions, and I'll shut up and take notes. That's how I learned a lot of the concepts and all the, a lot of the things that I know now in terms of business is because of my podcast. So I think that's a wonderful way to accomplish both of those things, building relationships and learning those skills that don't cost a ton of money.
Got it. So if we were to kind of put a verdict on it, it's kind of a holding position right now thing, you would say, for like education. Obviously, I think we can both agree, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we both know that education is good, obviously, and that it really can help you change those gears. But you're saying hold for now, perhaps, if it's not quite in the cards.
Yeah, I think in terms of like, I wouldn't, if I were in that position, like right now, I'm unemployed and I'm looking for a position, I would continue to do that. I would continue to network. I would continue to, to connect people. I would start a podcast in the area that I wanted to grow to. So let's say I'm Elzie and I want to become a marketing manager at a company. I would start a podcast interviewing marketing managers. That does two things. It gets my name in their ecosystem, and it helps me establish a relationship with them. So I can ask them things like, if you were me in this position, how would you approach your job search? Or if you were me in this position, how would you approach building your, et cetera? And I would do that, and I would take all of the notes and I would apply that to my own search. And eventually they're going to know a company that's looking for a marketing manager, and I'm going to already know language. I'm already going to know maybe even somebody who works there because they were a guest on my podcast, or something that will allow me to move into that position. That could be, whatever, the field that you're looking to get into.
Got it. So that's almost taking that strategy of it's sort of networking, but it's also sort of content creation, and you're probably going to feel a little bit uneasy in that at first, like, oh, I don't really know if I'm doing this. But I think you've just maybe turned all of our listeners onto a brand new job hunt strategy where they might feel like an imposter at first, but eventually they may actually come to grow and love, the way that they're actually doing some research to get, better at what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Really interesting. Okay. Almost done here, Elzie. Not too many of these left, but this one is another one I've kind of really wanted to pick your brain about here. And Elzie, what would your message be to someone who's listening right now that's feeling that really huge pressure from imposter syndrome? I'm not good enough. I can't get that job. I don't have those credentials, things like that. How would you help them sort of start taking swings at that barrier to break that?
I would say take small steps and celebrate small victories. A lot of times, we have this big vision or this big goal, and we don't enjoy or embrace the journey. Working, in bite-sized pieces, I think helps build that confidence. So maybe it's all right. Today I'm going to connect with 5 people on LinkedIn. All right. That's a success. Celebrate that. All right. Tomorrow I'm going to do 5 more, and really just being intentional about celebrating the small things and embracing it even when it's you. I find a lot of times people, they will look at the victories of other people like, all right, Rob he launched his podcast, but that's Rob. I could never do that. just really having a right size perspective on yourself, and knowing that, the victory that you've won, it is important. It is a big deal, and celebrating those, and those things add up. And you look back at the week, and now you have 5, 6, 7, 12 victories. And it's like, okay, maybe I can do it. Maybe I am good enough, or maybe I can, achieve that goal.
Got it. And I think that little chip at a time, I think, even the most mighty wall can be kind of brought down by that, just a chip at a time, because eventually ice gets in there, and hey, we live in Wisconsin. We know what happens to pavement, right?
Yep.
Cracks to pieces. So another really interesting angle here, Elzie, was as I did some research for this show, some legit research, not just the, pick the around in here kind of research. And I came across an article from Harvard Business Review, which I've always kind of found great, stuff from in the past. They're really, pretty spot on with the research. They said that you should reframe failure as a learning opportunity. And a lot of times I see, at least on this show and in job hunts and things like that, a lot of folks likely see that when they get turned down from a job, that's a failure. And when you get hit by, 10, 15, 200 of those a week, that sucks. And again, I think that maybe that lets that specter of imposter syndrome kind of loom back up in your life. Reframing this as a learning opportunity, in my words, I call this, failing forward, or learning, lean into failure is somewhat people call. For yourself, what does that consist of, and how could our listeners apply that to their job hunt?
Yeah, for me, for example, my name is Elzie, right? Mm-hmm. It's a very Black name. So when you see my resume, you know that I'm a Black guy. And when I first started my career, that bothered me, because I know the research. I know that when you have a Black sounding name, the chances of you even getting a callback diminish. But here's terrible. What I did. But here's the inviting the negative to the table, right? Okay. So I say, okay, I invite that negativity to the table. I understand that it's there, and I say, okay, this is a thing. It's documented and researched. So it's not me being crazy and making it up. So I have two choices, Rob. I could either allow that to, create that syndrome in me, saying, okay, maybe I'm not good enough because I put 200 applications out, I haven't got any callbacks. Or I could invite that to the table and say, okay, what does that mean? Is it right? Well, no, I'm educated. I have experience. Okay, so now I can move that negativity to the side and dismiss it as not true. And now I can deal with what is true. And it's okay. If I put out 300 resumes and 5 people call me back, the negative is the people who didn't call back, maybe. But the positive is the 5 people who did call back know that my name is Elzie. They know I'm Black, and they're good with it. So it saved me time, because I didn't have to go to those other 295 just to find out that they're not okay with me being who I am and my authentic self. So the way I look at it is, it actually saves me time, because I don't have to deal with the people who have a problem. They have the problem. There's no problem with me. Let's focus on the 5 that call back, because I know that we're in alignment, right? So the way I think about things is, again, invite the negative to the table, make that determination. Is it right? Is whatever that negative experience, is it right? Is there truth in it? And if so, let's deal with that truth. And if not, now we can, it served its purpose, right? It's provided the value that the negative things can provide. Move that over. And now let's deal with what we do have and how we can build on that.
Wow, that is, I'm really glad you framed it that way, Elzie, because that is something that actually I've wanted to tackle on the show too, for folks, because not everybody is, named John or Mary or anything like that. And I think the Black names or ethnic names for other cultures and things like that, if I can use a blanket term like that, really, I think a lot of times some really great people are really missed out on because some turkey in HR is racist, if you will. So I love how you framed that, and I think that's going to be the subject of a future episode here, probably with somebody who we both know. He has to deal with professionalism and hairstyles. That guy, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Walter. I think would
Yeah.
be great to speak on that because his show deals almost exclusively with that kind of that discrimination and things like that. But to shift away from issues that are really prevalent in our country today, which sucks. I think you've really framed that as inviting the negative to the table to say, okay, you are the voice that is not really a positive influence here, but you got a point. And I think framing that and saying that your imposter syndrome and your self-doubt is a valid opinion almost, if you will. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily the one that you should embrace, but that's to say, what, you're here and you're right. I did really do a terrible job at that last application or whatever. I think that really is going to help a lot of people to reframe and sort of lean into that as we were talking about here. That is some sound advice, good sir. Thank you. Excellent. Well, we're down to the last one, Elzie. This is it. And this is the chance where we get to kind of turn the show on its head a little bit. And you kind of get to pick the questions now. So in the realm of jobs and imposter syndrome and all these things that are kind of floating around this, is there anything that we missed that I, didn't get in my questioning or didn't come up in kind of our, impromptu questions that you think that folks should really hear from you today to consider going forward?
Yep. The one thing that I did, and as much as I wish I could take, and as much as I wish I could take credit for this, it wasn't my concept. And the concept is this: when I was working for these organizations, these companies, I would approach it as if I were the CEO or as if I owned the company. And so I would look at things like interdepartmental communication, how things worked, even if it's not my job, right? So if I had a job at McDonald's, I was on fries. So I was curious about, okay, well, how much do these fries cost wholesale? Right? Okay. How much do they cost retail? And why would we why would the organization take a hit on margin here but not here? Or why do the servers do this? Or what does this mean from a top down perspective? And how does that affect my position? How does that affect my colleagues upstream, downstream, and across stream? And what that did for me is that gave me a really good understanding of how the business worked. And that led to me getting opportunities because I understood the business. A lot of people are so focused on just their job, their role, that they miss out on the larger perspective of the organization. And I will venture to say that no matter what organization you're a part of, if you take ownership and think about it as if you're the owner, that will get noticed and you will have opportunities because of that approach and because of that perspective, because it's going to change the way you do things, right? I may put the red handle on the right side until I realize that, well, if I put it on the left side, when I hand it off, it makes it easier for the person next to me. They're going to appreciate that and they're going to help you. And then the cycle just continues. So I think having that perspective as if you're the owner, because technically you are, and the only difference between an entrepreneur and an individual contributor is the individual contributor has one customer, and that's the person who's paying your paycheck. The entrepreneur has many. So I think reshaping or reframing that perspective will lead to success. Even in your job search, you want to find a company who can be a great customer or a client for you, not the other way around.
Okay, that is, I missed that, and that was great. This has just been so much fun, Elzie, and as I'm looking kind of at the show clock here, it's about time to wrap up. And you have just been a fabulous guest for the show, and I think everybody listening can understand that, number one, you run a pretty neat community with PodcastTown and what you do and kind of how you make your way in the world. And I think that you've really provided a lot of reference points for them to use that